everybody. Welcome back to Girls Guide to Greatness. We are live on Facebook, and I have a special guest for you, Janie, the Mindfulness Coach. Janie Terrazas is with us today, and Janie has actually been on Girls Guide to Greatness before, and I had to have her back because she is absolutely fabulous. She is one of the smartest women I know. She is sweet and kind, super wise, super intelligent, and she has a lot of wisdom to share with us. And so that's why I'm excited to have her on the show again today. So thank you, Janie, for being here with me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And she's actually going to be talking with us today on how to tap into our true power and find inner peace. I love that. Having a relationship with self is key to having healthy connections with others. So that's the topic of the day. But before we get into that, I would love for you guys to hear more about Janie Terrazas, who she is. So I've got a little bio here. So check this out. So Janie is an inspiration igniter and a humanitarian at heart. Her mission is to empower and teach others how to tap into the power of peace that lies within so they can experience more joy, vitality, and prosperity in all areas of life. She specializes in self-care practices, overcoming childhood traumas, and restoring relationships. The most important intimate relationship we will cultivate and nurture is the one with ourselves. To know thyself is to care for thyself. Prior to stepping into the field of personal growth and wellness, Janie was working in the media and entertainment industry. Back in 2011, she experienced a spiritual awakening that ignited her intuitive gifts and led her down a drastically different career path. Ever since, she has dedicated her life to acting as a guide for those who are ready to venture down the path of self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-accountability, and self-love. That's amazing. So through mindful methods, she helps her clients identify the root of their pain and suffering and what really blocks them from living authentically. Janie continues to flex her creative passions. She's the creator and host of the Sacral Circle podcast, where they talk about healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. And she's also launched Rise Above TV, where their ultimate goal is to provide mindful content that empowers humanity and supports unity. Oh my goodness. That's like one of the coolest bios I've read, Janie.
Oh, it's so funny when people are like, oh, I need a bio. And, putting a bio together can be cumbersome sometimes, and how do you
Yep.
fit like all this into a bio? And that was sort of the best thing that I came up with. So I appreciate
I love it.
reading all of it. You didn't have to, so I appreciate
No, I wanted to. I wanted to because I really think that people need this kind of stuff. The stuff that you do, the services you give, the attention, you listen, you heal people. There are a lot of hurting people out there, a lot of hurting souls. And I know for a fact, I used to be hurting, when I went through my divorce, when I was looking for love, we have all these different segments of life we go through. And it's so imperative that we have people like you to help us step into a different space, a healing space, a loving space, and I absolutely love it. So, Janie, let's just jump right in and let's get started. So, what can you tell us about, I guess, some of your top tips or how we can shift into that space where we can start to find inner peace?
Well, that's a really good question. A lot of people hear the word mindfulness. They might even hear the word self-awareness. And we're going to hear that word a lot more in the coming years because really what mindfulness is, it's a practice that one can start to learn to use every day, become an observer of self, a very skilled, masterful observer of self. And for one to start doing that is an act of self-care and self-love just from the get-go. Okay. And be mindful is the sentence that they use to describe it is living on purpose or paying attention on purpose in the now, non-judgmentally. So to be a skilled observer of self would be to start discerning and start getting, I like to call it compassionately curious about your thoughts, about the things that you think, the things that you say, the things that you do, the people that you hang out with, the individuals, like friendships and relationships that you give a lot of your time and energy into, and start to do a self-analysis. Self-awareness is about self-analysis. And so I have a lot of different acronyms that they all tie together that have to do with living mindful. to live mindfully is also to live intentionally, to live deliberately. And most of us are not living authentically. To live authentically is to really be comfortable in your own skin, to really know who you are. Why do you want what you want? Why do you do what you do? Why do you think what you think? Getting curious about how does a personality actually get developed? Like, what is an identity? Why do people have identity crisis? Like we are all having an identity crisis, really. And sometimes it takes a catalyst or a catastrophic moment in our life to shake things up, to create change and to create a shift. But most of us have been conditioned and programmed to have a victim mentality. The way we see ourselves and the way we see things and challenges in life, we kind of come from a place of helplessness and hopelessness, which is tied into that victim mentality. And so you start to go through this journey of self-discovery, self-exploration. You can't help but to get to the point on your walk where you start to look at the wounds that you have. We all have childhood wounds that are impacting us in the present as adults. And unless we start to look at those things, they will end up subconsciously sabotaging our lives. And the way they sabotage us the most typically is in relationships, because everybody, if you think about it, I know some people are like, I don't need anybody and I'm fine. That is, and it's okay to be confident and say, it's one thing to say, I'm in a place right now where I choose not to be in a relationship, and that's okay. But to say we don't need other people at all outside of ourselves is a protective mechanism. Okay, so deep down inside, if you look at all children, we all want to be loved and we want to love. We want to be seen, heard. We want to be understood. We want to be felt. We want to, and all those things makes us feel understood. And when we feel understood and accepted, that makes us feel accepted. And when we feel accepted, we feel safe. And so we have to figure out what parts of us don't like us. This is about really becoming your own beloved, your own best friend. We all have two sides living inside of us. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions, okay? Because I'll kind of start to
No, this is good.
I'll start to go on a little bit of a tangent. But the reason why all of us love the superhero stories, comic books, and you can tie it back to what's called the hero's journey. I know you know a lot about that, Rebecca, the hero's journey. We're all on the hero's journey, and all of us have the twin going on inside. You got the villain and the superhero. You have your best friend and your cheerleader, and then you got that voice inside that tells you you're not enough. It's not perfect enough. What are you thinking, even trying doing something like that? Because
right.
It's all those the voice. I call it the mean voice.
Oh, yes.
We got the mean voice, and then we got the nice voice. We got the little devil and the angel. And that's really for us to start to look at our shadow side, our dark side, the inner child that's wounded, that's kind of screaming out for attention of some kind. They tie that also to the ego. The mind and the body is the human side of ourselves. It is a very sophisticated flesh recording mechanism. Okay. When you start to get real curious about physiology and psychology and how they're interfacing, it will blow your mind and it will change your life. So knowledge is power, but just because you have knowledge and you know something, it's not until you embody it and really practice it, and then it becomes sort of your new default system. So we need to get curious about our self-critic, our self-saboteur. We need to get curious about the 5 wounds. You guys can look them up, but the 5 wounds are abandonment, rejection, humiliation, injustice, and there's one other one I'm not going to think off the top of my head. But anyway, those wounds right there, betrayal, that's a big one. And if you look at them and think about them, they all sort of they all can kind of interconnect. And so when we start to see at what age did we start feeling these things? and start to see how it creates certain thoughts and certain emotions, because those things are creating neural pathways in our brain, and it's also shaping our nervous system. So
Mm.
when we start to, if you care about your well-being, then you need to start caring how you are being, because how it impacts your well-being. So when we have all these very you can look up the emotional frequency chart. Okay, every emotion has a frequency, it has a pulse. And when we think it, it shoots off, it's like an electrical pulse that goes off, and then it sends that message down the endocrine system. Well, if it's a low vibratory emotion or thought, sort of anything that resonates under fear, if we're worrying, if we're complaining, if we're lying, your body hears you. You cannot escape your body. It hears you and feels you, and then it'll react accordingly. So a lot of us are under a lot of stress, mostly because of the mindset and the thoughts that we're having, which really robs us of our vitality. When your energy level is low, your vitality is low. When your vitality is low, your immunity is low. You're more susceptible to diseases. When your mind or heart is not at ease, you will physically end up getting some type of disease. It'll be a disease or an illness or some sort of pain and suffering. If you're suffering mentally and emotionally, your body is going to experience that too. So I know I'm touching on a lot of things, but because most of our thoughts tend to be negative, because the brain is conditioned to kind of scan for threats and survival, and depending on how much threat there was when you were young, and how much mistrust was going on, and how much you were being shown that love is conditional, then you have no point of reference for unconditional love. So the
Right.
that's good for you feels unfreaking comfortable. We're more comfortable with pain and suffering and torture than we are with peace and pleasure. And sadly, when we start to get a taste of this for a second, we start to get scared because, oh my God, it's going to go away. We're going to lose it. You know,
Mm.
so we're just,
Yeah.
it's so the power of peace that lies within really is about you learning what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to be humble, how your body works, how your mind works, and get real curious about your personalized psychology. And then there are a ton of healing modalities out there, guys. The ones that I really, really love that were very powerful for me is anything like neural programming that really helps us start to get very clear about our words, because I don't know if y'all know this, but the word abracadabra stems from a Hebrew word. I don't remember how it's spoken, but I'm sure it's beautiful. Abracadabra, whatever it is. It's like so it has that in it. Anyway, that means as I speak, I create, or I create as I speak. It's something along those lines.
Mm.
It's super awesome. And words carry vibration, and our body is filled with water. And so, think about it. Emotion is waves and things like this. So anyway,
Yeah.
power of word. You get curious about that too. And when you start to see how it's impacting us on a cellular level, how our words and thoughts are impacting us on a cellular,
Oh, yes.
that's really powerful. And you can look into, I'm sure you love this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's one of my
Oh, he's one of my favorites. Yes.
favorites, Dr. Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden. Those three are like my homeboys, man. And
Yes.
they really understand sort of the spiritual, and they understand the spiritual aspect of this experience, based on just like ancient sacred knowledge and wisdom, and they know a lot about different like religions and theology and stuff, but they also understand how the cells work, how the body works, the power of the mind. When you start learning about you having you have a brain in your belly, a brain in your heart, and then the brain in the head. Well, this is intellect, this is your intuition, and your tummy is your instinct. And when you start really honing in on your instincts and your intuition and your intellect, I mean, that's a trinity in itself, sister. You know what I mean? So when you also Dr. Joe Dispenza and them, they talk a lot about, you know, our personality is creating our reality. So if you're experiencing a lot of strife, a lot of grief, there's things about your personality that got shaped. Again, this is about the subconscious mind. We can really start going in and retraining and rewiring that. Now when you start doing that, now you're creating a completely different electromagnetic biofield within yourself. You guys, everywhere we go, we are taking that biofield with us. Your thoughts, your aspirations, your dreams, your perception, how much hate and anger and
Oh,
bitterness,
yes. You know
behavior.
what I know what I call that, Janie? I call that my bubble. That's my bubble that I live in. Yes, I like it.
Right? I love that you like your bubble. Most people on the planet would probably say they don't like their bubble. That's
Mm,
saying I don't really like myself. I feel uncomfortable when I'm alone with my thoughts. It's
mm,
fun. It's not like when you're alone, you're like, yes. Why? Because you've learned how to cleanse and purify your mind so that it works with you. And that doesn't mean that we don't have the ego and that we can
right.
eradicate fear. It's not about that. Every time you level up, it's like a video game. I look at life as a video game. And every time you get to the next level, there's new little guys that are trying to take you down.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you also have new tools because now you got some cool fireballs or some cool like,
Yes.
you know, and I don't know, you start to, again, going back to the superhero thing, we all have these amazing gifts. And we are all, no matter where you were born, what color skin you have, what economic background you're born into, or anything like that, there are some gifts that all of us are given just by simply being born. And when we start to learn how to use the power of free will, when we start to understand energy, when we start to understand imagination and vision and things like this, you really can start to use it for your greater good. And you start to see, when you start to align with a more virtuous way of living and thinking and feeling and being and doing, and you start to understand the power of gratitude and start to look at the blessings, and you start to train your brain to look for the silver lining. When you start to build grit and resilience from the inside out, it doesn't mean that life's still not going to throw you a curveball. It just means that you know exactly what to do to get up and dust yourself off. You don't stand on the ground and be like, oh, why did this happen? And you know what? That there's nothing wrong with feeling. We want to feel the emotion. That's what else. That is the other thing I love about mindfulness, is because it's about giving ourselves permission to have emotions, but to get clear about what the emotions are, and then not project them onto other people, but to process them in a way, to feel them, to breathe through them. That's another healing modality that I love is EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping. That's really great. Movement, yoga, all of these things are going to help us. You have to, the more flexible you are with your body, believe it or not, you can tie it into like being flexible with the mind and being flexible with our heart. The other thing too, because we've had so much heartbreak and heartache, we think by kind of just not dealing with it, maybe putting it away, and I'm good, I get it, I've forgiven them. It's like sometimes we are pretending. We're pretending because we don't really want to deal with the truth of the pain. But it's in the pain, if you find the right person, because part of this self discovery work and self exploration and healing, I did a lot of it. I did do a lot of it on my own, and there is a part of it that needs to be done on your own, but you cannot do it alone. And so that's another thing. Sometimes people are afraid to admit some of these things. And I'm so fortunate and blessed. And I consider you one of them, Rebecca. I have a circle of friends that I can go to, and we all keep it real, real with ourselves. You know,
Awesome.
we share our losses. Well, I don't even like to say losses. We share our wins, but we also share some of the struggles we had that week and how we could have course corrected and stuff. And so we're all there for each other,
Right.
patting each other on the back where maybe we're being a little bit too hard on ourselves, and just kind of just going back to what
Yes.
what is the truth? And the truth is every day is a new day. Every day we're striving to live optimally and do the best that we can. And if we don't always hit the bullseye, you know, that's okay. I think the other part of this journey is it's about vulnerability and humility. Without those, we can't have authenticity. And I think
Mhm.
being comfortable looking at our past, because there's a lot of shame that we end up feeling, you know what I
Yep.
mean? When we start to look back and we start to realize, oh my God, I did this and this. So I created that and brought that upon myself. But while I was in that space, I also hurt this person. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so this is also an opportunity for us to atone, you know, to atone with ourselves. And if there's ever anybody and in your heart, it's like, oh, write them a letter. If you don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable calling them, you know, I know when I started waking up to like the ways in which I had broken men's hearts, there was a couple of boys in my life or guys in my life that I was like, God, I got to reach out to them. And I did, you know,
That's good.
you know,
That's awesome.
yeah, you know, they were appreciative of it. And some of them maybe didn't even need it, but it was just more of this like closure. Um,
Right.
I kind of jumped all over the place, but I think us being able to look at ourselves holistically gives us the space to create harmony within us. And harmony and balance, those two words kind of go together. And sometimes people don't really like the word balance. Sometimes they're like, they think that it has to be this perfect balance of like work and play. And it's like, no, you have to find what brings you joy, what makes you happy, what lights you up, what stresses you out, who stresses you out, and then start creating and designing a life that brings you more peace and pleasure versus the other. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that too, because, you know, Tony Robbins teaches me that we as human beings, we attach meaning to words, or meaning to everything. And so sometimes that meaning can get out of whack. And the word balance has been overused so much that now we have this stigma around it. We have these perceptions around it. And so I taught myself just recently, I told myself, all right, Rebecca, forget about what you thought you knew about balance and embrace that word, because before I was like, oh, there's no such thing as balance. And then I was over here, I'm like, oh, well, maybe there is balance. And I was back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to embrace that there is balance. There is such a thing as balance. And like you were saying, it's a sort of kind of like finding your own rhythm and your own flow and finding that sweet spot is what I like to call it. And so I embraced it. And I said, there is such a thing as balance. So there is my balance. And my balance may look different than someone else's, but there is something you can achieve there. I truly honestly believe that.
Yes, I like to say like for instance, green time and screen time. So you know, if I'm on the screen a lot and I haven't been going out to nature for a couple of days, then on that maybe third day, I'm going to go ahead and block a little bit more time so that I can restore nature a little longer. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Oh yeah.
And also too, as a mindfulness coach with my clients, and I feel like it's really important for us to find practical, playful ways to hack self-care into our day. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
doing and producing and that action and that movement is important, but also stillness, you know, and being able to be still
Mhm.
and not
Yeah.
feeling like you have to move around or be doing something, you know, it's like noticing that in that space. If you're going to just be, I say in my 7 positive daily habits, which by the way, if they go to my website and get the Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit, I'm pretty sure the 7 positive daily habits come with it. But
Nice.
one of them is breathe and be still for at least 2 minutes a day. You know, so even if other thoughts are coming through, whatever, just be okay with those thoughts. Look at them like leaves on a river. You know what I mean? Like a river's kind of going and they're just kind of floating by. And then you just put those thoughts in that leaf and then it just keeps going. You know, you just have to get a little bit
Good.
creative. But some people think they shoot too high too soon sometimes when it comes to the word meditation. Even that can seem like, oh, meditation.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you know what? We need to redefine and give
Yes.
meditation, because even when you're doing maybe some gratitude journaling, or you're speaking gratitude, that in itself is a form of meditation. You know what I mean? um
Mhm.
Taking a bath, giving yourself a little bit of time, you can look at that as meditation. And obviously there's the kind that you get all like humming and you light up your candle and you got your incense and you really You do your deep breathings. I do. When you do some deep, intentional diaphragmatic breathing, look up Wim Hof. He's a great instructor for breath. But you get high because why? Because we are high in our biochemistry. And so when you do that kind of meditation, you probably do want to be at home, someplace comfy, But that can be anywhere. And I think that we need to redefine that as well. So balance and meditation. We're breaking
Yes.
we're breaking down the old ideas of what that's supposed to be, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this because Janie, you're hinting on a lot of different subjects and topics that I actually teach in my on my health and fitness side of things. Because normally my main thing and my main function as an entrepreneur is that I do coaching and I do business coaching and design. But I also have a love for health and fitness. I have a love and passion for learning how, like you were saying, how to really become better, a better human being, to become better in my relationships and just overall be able to thrive in the life that we're given. And so I've had this love for learning about how the mind works, how our body works. And so I came up with this really cool, I guess it's called just a 4-week course, basically, of how to teach women how to age backwards. And I talk to them about energy. I talk to them about breathing. I talk to them about being grateful, the mindset. I hardly ever talk about food and all this other stuff because we know what to do when we know what to eat. We know we got to move more. And yes, that is part of my course. But what I focus on is the inside. How do you spark your joy? How do you actually find your inner peace? And what does that mean? And all these different things. And so we take a closer look at that because a lot of women don't even realize that we wear our stress, we wear our insecurities and our fears and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, guys, we need to, like you were saying before, how to learn how to be vulnerable, learn how to be humble, and to atone and forgive. Because if we don't learn how to atone and forgive, what happens is that for unforgiveness, it's going to be showing up in your skin. You're going to look older. You're going to feel low energy. And sometimes you don't even know it because you've been carrying around with you so long. That's your norm. And like you were saying before, Janie, that's probably why they need someone like you to kind of identify where these things are, they're kind of hiding, and then you bring them out into the open, and they're like, oh yeah, now I understand why I feel this way or why I'm doing this. And I like to talk to you about how you were saying that we kind of like respond a certain way now in our adulthood because based on our wounds, what we received from as a child. And I think that's important. It's because a lot of times, again, we're in that space so long, that's all we know. And then someone tells us, well, life doesn't have to be this way. You can actually experience love and joy and hope and all this great stuff over here. And people are like, what are you talking about? No, not for me. And so I think it's important that people know that they do have a place to go where they can heal from their childhood wounds and be able to learn how to grow into whatever they'd like to be. More loving person, more giving person, a more understanding person, more compassionate person, right? This kind of stuff thrills me and excites me because not only do I want to be a better person myself, but one day I hope to be in a relationship and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to be able to communicate better, really communicate well with my spouse. I want to be able to really enjoy those quiet moments or the thrilling moments or whatever it is, and just really be able to listen to my partner and also be open. I really truly think that it's important for us to be, like you were saying, very vulnerable. And I think that's one of my hard, I guess more difficult spots for me because I was a single mom and I had to be the mom and the dad and I had to toughen myself up, right? And so those safety mechanisms were put into place. And so I've slowly started to kind of like really lean into that and saying, okay, Rebecca, you need to look at this. Why are you being so hard, or why are you being so, tough on yourself or whatever? Ease up a little bit, be nice, be open, so I'm having these little mini conversations with myself and right. And so, because I want to prepare myself, I really want to be, more supportive, more forthcoming, more open, where I can show my emotions, and it's okay to show my emotions and I won't get shot down because, I'm crying or that I'm sad or whatever it may be. And that I have the right kind of partner as well with me that is okay with that as well. So we're kind of more, you know what I'm saying, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really great that you're already sort of practicing what that language would look like and envision
Yes.
it, because, well, you know, the power of visualization, you know, so it's like the mind body, you're creating these memories because the mind doesn't know what's imagined and what's real. Isn't that
Yes.
cool? So anyway, so as you do that, you're already sort of practicing it, but it is very different. It's kind of like learning how to use a gun just in case you ever need it. But until somebody's coming in your house and you got to use it, it's kind of like, ooh, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
emotional vulnerability and intimacy can literally be that scary for, you know, like,
Oh, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be for me. I'm totally out of practice. So
well,
when it happens,
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because you have that level of intimacy already with yourself. And so even though it might
Mhm.
have been a while since you've been since you've had a chance to maybe really flex it in a romantic partnership,
Right.
it's going to be so much easier because you have learned how to emotionally regulate yourself. You have learned how to discern and talk to your own self. It's sort of that inner dialogue and the inner critic. You now know where some of your triggers and wounds come from. So when he's doing something, maybe he's making you dinner and he happens to say something that just kind of rubs you the wrong way, that makes you think he's telling you that you're a shitty chef. You know what I mean? You got to take some time to really think, wait, is that really what's happening? Da, 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 da.
Right.
You know what I mean? I actually have this safe communication method and I'm updating that book. I'll send you a copy of it, Rebecca. So you just have it. And if you ever want to just kind of go through it and one day
Thank you.
partner, maybe y'all can have some fun and go through the workbook and stuff.
Yeah.
But really it's about learning how to seek the truth. Seek the truth is with yourself, but we have subjective realities, you know, like how he's seeing things and the words that you use could have a meaning to him that you did not know when you use a certain,
Exactly.
which caused him to feel a certain way. So there's a lot of assumptions that are being made and couples are reacting and speaking and arguing from those assumptions that are
Yeah.
not accurate. So seek the truth is it's a self-discovery process that you do with yourself, but it can also be used in education, and it's not just romantic. It's with a mom, your friend, or anything. But you first seek the truth about what you need to seek the truth about before you bring to the table. You also have to accept accountability and responsibility. Once you guys start to sort of dismantle this and start to see where the miscommunication was, take accountability and responsibility for the little domino that you knocked over or the piece that you had to play with the dissonance. Yeah, maybe 80% was him, but if you're 20, own the 20. And that A is also attitude of atonement, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
F is free your mind. So if you're going to go seek the truth and accept accountability, you also have to free your mind of what you're going to want to bring into the present moment that could be wrong. You know, we're bringing in our old shit from our parents. Sometimes we're bringing old crapola from our old relationships. And that's where work starts coming in handy because you can start dumping all of that stuff and it has less weight and less grip on you in the present. It's super awesome once you start clearing and cleaning your heart and your head. And your body. This is a mind,
Mhm.
heart, body purification integration
And
that takes place. So F is free your mind. E, when you get really good at S, A, and F, you can express and expand your heart and live and lead in love. Now y'all both feel safe to really breathe and really be yourself and really share the ugly, dark thoughts that you had. I get to flex that now with Justin and my partner. And it's the first couple, we've been together a little over 2 years. And it's not like we just flexed that safe communication method and it was all hunky dory. Girl, it was not pretty. You know, there was things we had to heal, and it was just like, oh, but girlfriend, we are there now, and it is so.
you're in your rhythm. You're in your flow. Yeah, I love it.
It's like learning how to tango. You know, we see these couples that tango super awesome, and we're like, wow. But think about how many practices and how many times they
Yeah.
step on each other's toes, and how many might have gone the wrong way. So but when you're with somebody who's wanting to master communication, who wants to have what's called a real relationship, they want to be able to safely and honestly and effectively communicate their wants, needs, desires, concerns, insecurities, and fears. They're down for working through their traumas. Like, I'm telling you, humility is the new sexy. Guys just need to get down with it. I still talk about the
Oh my gosh, I love this. Yes. And I have to say, because my daughter and I, we talk about relationships a lot because I haven't been in a relationship in forever. I focus on other things, but that'll come soon. And then my daughter hasn't been in a real relationship either. So we're both still young and we're still hopeful, that sort of thing. And we're like, oh, I can't wait to, like you said, start really communicating with them and, being more intimate and all that stuff. So we're excited about being in a relationship. And we were talking that, and I would love to get your insight on this, Janie, because we were talking about how really when it really comes down to it, women have a lot of power in the relationship. And we feel really bad about the women out there who believe they have to kind of shrink themselves down in order to get what they need out of the relationship or whatever it is. I know we could probably talk about that for a whole other 2 days probably, but there we were just like, oh my gosh, we see it on TV a lot, and this is where it kind of sparked, and it's like, why do women feel they have to be, that they can't be open or honest, they can't ask for what they want, and really or even just say the word no if they don't want to be intimate with a man, or they want to wait until marriage, or if they want whatever it is that they feel they need to do, why can't they be more honest? And I feel that it's so sad that we've come into this society where we give men all the power, and it's like, what happened? When did the tables turn? Girls used to have amazing power, and we were the ones who got to say, yes, I will go on a date with you, yes, I will sleep with you, yes, I will marry you. But now it's like women are kind of like these little puppy dogs following their guys around and doing whatever. And I'm just like, I know it's not everyone, but I see it, and and they show it a lot on television and on, in Hollywood movies. And I'm just like, why is that? I don't get
Well,
it.
it's funny that you said, like, even you said women used to have the power. During Egyptian times, women got to pick the pharaohs. If you look back in Native American cultures and in indigenous cultures, there was a respect about what the men and women, the intelligences that each one carried, and the power that each one carried. And they found a way to use them in a way that was like cooperative and collaborative. But somewhere, this is like after that, for the last few thousand, well, yeah, a couple thousand years, the scales and the respect of the patriarch and matriarch shifted greatly. And there's religious, societal, and cultural ideologies and programming and narratives that were systematically put into place to really disrupt the universal natural law. You know,
Mm,
even if we take it down, and this is kind of getting a little geeky, but if you look at the atom, right, there's the electron and the proton and the neutron. That in itself is a trinity. But you cannot have an atom without the proton and the electron. You need them both. So to say one is more important than the other, or to put one above, that is
right.
the hierarchy that starts to take place. Like even now, when I don't necessarily consider myself religious. I say I'm more spiritual. But, when I think of in the name of the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, I say in the name of the Father, the Mother, the Son, the Daughter, and the Holy Spirit, like if I want to, because it really is honoring both energies. So that, like you said, that's a 2-day conversation to all the layers
Mm,
that were sort of put into place to put us where we
right.
are right now. And so we as women, for a very long time, even if you think about the stories like Disney stories, they led us to believe that there's somebody outside of us, and that not only somebody outside of us, but a man outside of us that's going to see us. And they're going back to the word balance. As women, when we learn how to find our balance, we have a left brain and a right brain, the architect and the artist, logic and emotion. When we start to dial into the healthy version of the protector and the provider and the caretaker, and we start to learn how to do that for ourselves, once we do that, we don't need to be like, oh, I don't need a man because I could take care of myself. No, you're whole, and your life is filled with joy and happiness, and you're not looking for somebody else to bring that into your life. You know how to create it for yourself. So to bring somebody in, they better not disrupt my sanity and my peace. Like the little bit
Right.
that's fine. But if it's like a ton, and then there's no
Mhm.
reciprocity, and it's like this, it's like, no, if I can't speak my voice, if I was in a relationship for 10 years, I didn't even realize subconsciously I still had so much trauma that I didn't see it for what it was until the end. And then when I started
Mm,
to heal myself and want to heal with him, so that we wouldn't keep projecting our traumas onto each other, and we can try
Right.
to solve our conflict. That person wasn't ready to do the inner work that was necessary in order to bring balance within his own self. So how the hell am I going to have that with him? You know what I mean?
Mm.
It sucked because I had to let it go. That's 10 years and I married him. So it was like, oh, but this is when I kept, there's this level of submission. Okay. And it's okay. That's another word that is a very, we need to use that word. It's a, I don't even know how to describe that word, but it has its positivity. There's positive
Yes.
aspects to submission, but what couples need to understand, it's not just a woman that needs to understand what that means. A man needs to understand what it means to surrender and submit. In my relationship with Justin, there's certain situations that I feel he's going to lead better in. He's got more of what it takes to kind of lead us, and I'm going to follow. But there's also other places where I'm a little bit stronger and I'm leading. And for some men, that's super uncomfortable.
Right.
For number one, to not have the answers and to not know, it's really uncomfortable. And when they're with a woman that has vision, especially a woman that's really spiritual, and they're not, they look at it as a gift, they look at it as a negative. Also, men too, for a long time, we have been conditioned because men taught how to connect with their feelings. Most of them haven't. Okay. And we think, oh, that's just how guys are. No, 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 no. As a matter of fact, there's this awesome documentary that the BBC did, and they did all this research in nurseries where babies were born, and all the boy babies cried way more than the girl babies. They were way more expressive and crying a lot more. They also noticed that when they put little faces in front of the girls, like little fake faces, and the girls would hone in on the face. If somebody was standing over them, it was like looking. But boys, no matter if there was a person or a fake face, they were looking at all the objects like in the room.
Hmm.
We need so women are a very honed in on social cues because of the babies. It's like any little facial thing and nonverbal. We're so intuitive in that way, a little more so maybe than men, but they have it in them too. So we have to like recognize that men don't like to deal with feelings, and so when women want to come talk, they usually get loud or they run away. And so we've just been conditioned to like put up and shut up, just put up and shut up. And this has been enabling our men, and it's been making our women very sick. It's making us sick. Like literally, we're stressed out. We're doing way more. We're putting ourselves last. This is hurting our sexual energy. It's hurting our creative energy. And we are here to blossom and be vibrant and be radiant. And there's a lot that's keeping us scared from going into that space. Rightfully so. That's for us to start fighting together. And this is not going to be an easy, quick fix. But we all have our own responsibility, our own accountability and responsibility to work on the things that are keeping us from fully owning our feminine power, like all of our masculine and our feminine, but really own our femininity in a beautiful, graceful way. And this whole cattiness between girls, that's just women that have toxic masculine energy that has not been resolved also. So they're kind of coming out that fighting energy, that combat. And we all need to heal both sides of ourselves so we can step up into, it's kind of like the dark masculine and the light masculine, and the dark feminine and the light feminine. It's like, it's just tapping into consideration, kindness.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
a lot happening.
yeah, it is a lot. It's like like I said, I could talk about this stuff all the time, all day long, every day. But I did remember learning something. I was taking, so when I went through my divorce, I went through a program called Divorce Care. And in that program, I learned so much. Because it's funny, Janie, it's like you don't really know about relationships until you're actually in one, and then you get your heart broken and you got to recover. It's almost like you have to learn on the go. Like no one really teaches us, really, right? The same thing about money. A lot of times we were just thrown out into the real world after we graduate high school. We have no idea how to use a credit card or how to balance a checkbook, right? And so it's like you're learning on the spot, you're learning as you go. And so I'm learning all this stuff about relationships, and I'm reading books like what is it called? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and I'm reading books like that, and I'm reading some Christian books about Christianity and how that works in marriage and all these different things. Because I wanted to know, because one, I wanted to learn what I did wrong, if anything, and two, I wanted to be a better wife next time around. So I'm educating myself, and I'm healing, and I'm growing, and I'm so glad I took that time to do that. But in the class, I'll never forget, they said that relationships are not 50-50. They're 100 and 100. You've got to be whole. You've got to be well, powerful, bring in your A game. And then you're going to find someone else who's going to be on this similar path, and you guys are running towards that goal together. And you're on, you're working towards this, these similar goals. And he's bringing his A game. He's 100%. And, you've already dealt with your baggage, and you've already dealt with your hurts and your losses. And now you're growing and you're thriving together. And I love that. And so that's what everything I learned, I taught my kiddo. And so now she knows, like you got to find a guy who's 100%. You don't want him 50. You don't want him 60. He's got to be bringing his whole freaking A game.
Yes, girl, that's what I'm talking about. And it's not like his game has to be perfecto, but he has
Right,
to
right.
understand. It's like what you're saying. He gets it. He cares about that personal growth awareness,
Yes.
and he's wanting to grow and better himself, and he wants to be there for you. It's like, how can I uplift you? They also, a gentleman. I call it the gentleman because there is a gentleman's movement that I'm like supportive of.
Oh, nice.
I have a project called Real Talk Real Men on Rise Above TV, and these are the gentlemen I know in my life, and they get together and they talk about topics that men typically don't talk about. And it's about mindfully redefining masculinity. And so there are gentlemen out there that understand what it means to protect and provide for a woman's mental body, emotional body, spiritual body, physical body, and of course, even financially, there's that part of it.
Yes.
So it takes, like you said, it takes some effort on our part to do some learning. You mentioned that a couple of books. Another person that I really love is Esther Perel, Perel. You may have heard of her. She's a really great relationship coach and therapist, counselor, and then also Dr. John Gottman. And I think you probably have heard of him. He talks about the 4 horsemen and relationships, and they have a ton of information and videos available for people to learn the basically the principles of what it takes to have a real relationship that can thrive for the long haul.
Yes. Because I know it's possible, because I have seen people in relationships that are thriving. So that's something that we can achieve, people. So have hope for, those out there listening, because I know it can be done. And especially like you were saying before, Janie, when we actually are purpose driven, when we're paying attention and we're living intentionally, we can actually do that in every area of our lives, especially with relationships. And so that's why I like to, educate myself. And I think that's where it comes down to, is education. It's like, do we still want to kind of dabble here and there, play around with this, be in and out, wishy-washy, or do you want to commit? Do you want real, a real loving relationship? Do you want to go all in and not feel scared that you're going to fall, and to be in that kind of position would be amazing to everybody, I think, to be able to go in fully committed. So I'm going to challenge the audience listening and watching, if you are ready to be like fully committed in taking charge of your education, of, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to healing yourself, so you don't have to bring this baggage into someone else's, life, or if you want to attract the right mate, or if you want to better your current relationships, reach out to Janie, and make sure you definitely check out. She's got a free, what is it? Love Thyself guide.
Yeah, it's a Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit. It's like 9 things that I feel every human being should know about themselves, especially if they're wanting to be in a relationship. It's about learning how to have a healthy relationship with yourself and others, but you got to know thyself before you can really love thyself.
Yes. Yeah. So make sure you reach out to her and get that. And we'll have all the links in the show notes too. But this is good stuff, because it's March 16th, 2021. And I would love that we continuously work towards an amazing future. And I'm talking about on every level, in your money, in your love life, in your relationships, in your business, in your job. We want you guys to be successful on every level, and we're here to help you make sure that that happens. You're not alone in this. So reach out to Janie. Start your journey right now. Commit to it, embrace it, love every messy, crazy, amazing, thrilling moment of it. And we cannot wait to hear about your stories and your transformation stories. So make sure you reach out to us and tell us all about that. In the meantime, we will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us at Facebook. And cheers, everybody. Thank you so much, Janie, for being on the show.
Yes.